Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Monday, May 6th, coming to you live just like always, right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios and on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope everything went your way. I know everything didn't. Half of it did. Half of it sucked. I know how that goes. But hope you guys are doing well. It's a beautiful day in Lubbock. It's a beautiful day at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. And we're here to talk about health, just like we do every night from 6 to 7 right here and live on all of our social media, Facebook, YouTube, and X, and on the radio all over the place, on streaming, 987radio.com, the Live 365 app. If you guys don't have that, you want to listen to that radio station, the Live 365 app is a cool app. You can get it at the App Store. You can have Walk by Faith Radio all the time. You can listen to Ken Adams or McDermott Show or Pratt on Texas, any of those shows that you want to right there on your phone, wherever you go. You could take that with you. So it's pretty handy to have. Sometimes when I'm on the road and I want to listen to see what's going on, what those other guys are talking about, I'll use the Live 365 app. And it actually is pretty handy. I like it a lot. So if you want friends to listen to us, share these shows with your friends. I appreciate it. I'm really not doing this to become some social media influencer. That's not my goal. Is to have this show. If we influence the world to make the world a better place, then I'll be all about that. I'll be totally fine with that. So if you got friends and family somewhere that you just think, hey, I wish they'd listen to Dr. Clemmons talk about this stuff. Send them the links. Share the shows with them. Let them know that what we're talking about, because my aunts came to town this week. It's so funny. My two aunts came. Love them to death. They're just fun people. Came to spend a few days with my mom since my dad passed away, and so they came in and so I went over to Mom's house and I saw all I looked in the refrigerator and there was a bundt cake in there, and there was some chocolate covered eclairs, and there was some muffins, and the whole thing was full of refined carbohydrates. And I said, after they left, I said, Mom, what the heck was that? What's up with your refrigerator? And she was like, oh, I know. That was their way of trying to take care of my mom, right? That was their way of trying to love my mom. And that's that whole generation of people they just had that generation of we'll just bring some muffins, and we'll just bring some comfort food, and it's not, and really, as you guys know, it's not comfort food, it's poison. It doesn't make my mom's life better. It makes my mom's life worse. It makes her joint pain worse. It makes her brain fog worse. It makes her body function, swell up and function worse. And so, but it's that generation. So my aunt said to me, she said, and she is the sweetest lady on earth, maybe. She really is. She is a sweet, sweet human being. But she said, you need to have something. And she's 80 years old. And and she's about 4'10", maybe. She's a little bitty lady. And she said, you need to have something that keeps you young. Do you have anything in your office that keeps you young? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, you could start off with fish oil. You should have seen the look on my mom's face. My mom was like, oh no, he's going to start talking about fish oil. But no, I didn't. I just said, you can start off with fish oil. And my aunt said, oh, gross. She's like, I have tried that, and that is just no way. That is horrible. And I was like, yeah, I hear that. I hear that a lot from a lot of people. Most of them are taking, like 12 medications for all of their problems and all their inflammatory problems and all their osteoporosis problems and all that sort of thing. And so it was just interesting. It was obvious that my aunts don't listen to my show on a regular basis, just based on how their weekend went. So I've got family members And I've mentioned to them, and Mom mentioned to them, hey, maybe you might want to listen to the show. And so I know you've got family members that are exactly the same thing, and um, they're all. Um, one of my ladies told me today that she was she was listening to. Uh, she had gone to see some family and the kids, because she's almost 80. She's in her late 70s, and the kids are all in their 50s, and they were sitting around talking about their diabetes and their diabetes medication and all that stuff. And so, you know, I don't know what else to do. We work all day long. We see patients all day long. We have a radio show. We put in the hours. I started this morning at 5:40. I got to get more attention, and I got to share this stuff. So it really would be nice to have some help. So if you guys have family members, if you got friends, if you got someone that you would like to just at least get some of this information, share the show with them. Send them a link. Tell them about it, and we'll just see if we can. We'll just see if we can make their life better as well. So tonight we're going to take health to church. We did get to go to church yesterday. Got the sermon, and but it's not very long. I don't think I need to take up an entire show with taking health to church. So I've got about 4 or 5 things on my list tonight that we're just going to kind of work through. Carpal tunnel syndrome, the biomechanics of bending, one of the things that I want to talk about. And the statin, there's a whole section in this book that we didn't get to last week in the book, the Grain Brain book by David Perlmutter, that it talks about cholesterol and statins and his opinion on statins. And so I thought I would share that with you, because you may not have heard that. You guys that are taking statins, you might not want. So that's one of my things on the list. So I think I'm just going to get started. 2 things I want to remind you of. One of them is brand new, but one of them is, hey, if you're looking for a good massage therapist, I got one for you. Her name's Lorianne. Her number is 806-392-0528. She did not ask me to say that, and she did not ask me to tell anybody about it. I'm telling you about it because she does a great job. She's super professional. She's super quiet. The place is nice and clean and taken care of, and she does a really, really good job. So, Lorianne, 806-392-0528 if you're looking for a massage therapist in Lubbock. That's her. Second thing I wanted to tell you about is something that's brand new to me. Today's the first day I've ever heard it. I heard it like 5 minutes before the show started tonight. I got a text from a guy that I've been taking care of. I've adjusted him 5 or 6 times maybe. He has one of the worst spines that I've ever seen. It literally is deteriorated everywhere. It's really, really bad. And he came in having what he called sciatica pain, which is kind of a catch-all a lot of times. Like, there's a lot of contribution to what people call sciatica pain. Any pain that runs down your leg, a lot of times people call that sciatica, and it's not necessarily always the sciatic nerve. There's several different ways you can get pain that runs down your leg, but everybody kind of clumps it into that one thing. So I didn't really see it so much in his pelvis as much as in his lumbar spine. But he went and saw his medical doctor, his PCP. He sent me a text and said, hey, I went and saw my PCP, and I have low blood pressure, and he changed my blood pressure medication, and I haven't had the pain run down my leg in 4 days now. That's brand new to me. So that's something that maybe we should do a better job checking blood pressures here in the office, and add that to the things that we do. I know from a neurological standpoint, it's very important. I really have to think about that. I might think about that tonight and kind of see what that was all about. And but sometimes we miss, and I don't think we missed as much as as much as people. I had a patient today leave, and she didn't make an appointment because her SI joint was better, but her neck really is sore since we've been going to work on her. Chiropractic is the detection and correction of subluxation. That's what we do. We try to figure out where you have interference in your nervous system and correct that interference and let your body heal itself. And this place is called the Rock Health and Wellness Center. This place is not called the Joint Pain Management Clinic, right? There is a joint pain management clinic. They do a great job for whatever that thing is that they do. But in a health and wellness type facility, I'm working on people and trying to keep them well. And if we all decide that the reason that you came here is because you have some sort of pain, and you're going to be judging the outcome of your care based on whether or not we resolved your pain in an X number of visits, you're not in the right place. It's not my game. It's not what I do. That's not wellness care. Mine is to judge how you're doing over a period of time. How are you over a period of time? Are you functioning at a high level over a period of time? That's what wellness care is to me. So, but I didn't. That's a new one. That's something that low blood pressure causing. I mean, I could kind of work through the neurology of all of it, but he said he increased his blood pressure medication, and now he doesn't have sciatic pain running down his leg. So, hey, number one, good for him. Number two, why are you having to increase your blood pressure medication? And that's not good. That's not health. We're putting a Band-Aid on something that's causing that pain. But it was a new one for me. It was something that I learned today about that particular thing. And I think it's the first time in 20 years of practice that I've ever heard that. So I'm glad he told me. I'm glad he shared it for me. I'm glad he doesn't have any pain running down his leg. And hopefully it can help him function better. So I thought I'd share that with you. Not, it's sometimes you come on shows like this and it comes off like you have all the answers to all the things, and I don't have all the answers to all the things. And I sure thought we were working on the right thing. I just didn't think we were getting enough frequency with it, but maybe we weren't working on the right thing. So anyway, those are the two things. So let's get to taking health to church tonight. We'll get started with that, and it's going to be rather quick. We won't use up the whole thing, I don't think. And I left my Bible and my notes at home, but I remember what we were talking about. And the pastor yesterday, and just for you guys that are new to the show, what we do on these Monday nights is we take the sermon that we got at church yesterday, and we try to apply it to health. And I think it's kind of cool because it should apply to health, right? It should apply to your business too. It should apply to my business. It should apply to everybody who's listening, everybody's business. You should be able to take whatever sermon you learned yesterday and apply it. And if you didn't go to church yesterday, or you don't go to church at all, then that's fine too. You can still learn about health. So we're talking about health. I'm not preaching to you tonight. I'm just talking about health. So the sermon it's been a series called Stories Jesus Told. And it's just talking about the red letters for you guys that don't understand. That it's the red letters in the Bible, and the red letters represent when Jesus is talking. So, in just in case you didn't know what that meant. But because I actually had a girl that really had a hard time with Jesus and the Bible and all this stuff. And I asked her one time, I said, you ever just read the red letters? And she just kind of looked at me and she's like, she didn't have any idea what that meant. And she was like, I don't know what that means. And I was like, the red letters, when Jesus is talking. And she didn't understand that at all. I said, go back and just read the red letters. Don't read the rest of it. Just read the red letters and see if you have a different opinion on what's going on. Just the teachings of that person. That person just happened to be, God himself in, the Son of Man and all that stuff. Yeah, the Savior of the universe. But if you don't believe that, just read those parts. And so these are stories Jesus told. And what the pastor presented, he said, have you ever been wronged? Have you ever been cheated and felt like, man, I'd like to get revenge on that person? Or have you ever had somebody say something about you that wasn't right? Or have you ever felt like your friends betrayed you, or somebody said something about you that changed all your friend group, or maybe an ex relationship that you had, an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse or something like that actually said something about you that wasn't true, or bent the truth a little bit to slander you, not slander you, but just make out like you're a bad person or whatever, right? And it hurt your feelings and it made you look bad and you lost friends over it and all that sort of thing. And that's how he kind of started the presentation. And then he said, how did you respond to it? And how many of us want to respond to it immediately? And how many of us want to get revenge immediately, like right now? Like that's what we want. We want someone did us wrong. We're fixing to go do them wrong equally as bad. We got to get revenge on them, right? And so he said, hey, listen to this. So he's talking about Luke. And hang on one second. We got to text him and just make sure if you guys have, okay, yes. So I'll get to that text after the show. So if you do have a text or you have a question, 806-794-0400 is the number. Feel free to text us. So this is Luke 18, verse 1. And it says the parable of the persistent widow. And it says, then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, I'm just going to read these first 8 verses, right? Because this is what the whole thing is about. In a certain town, there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with a plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually come and attack me. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Now, this is kind of hard to follow, and it was hard for me to follow yesterday when he used that introduction and then followed it with that paragraph. But he broke it down into a couple of things, and he said, in a certain town, there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. So this judge, he wasn't ruled by some sort of ethical, God-fearing ethical stance. And he didn't give a rip what anybody thought about him. Obviously, he had some sort of position of authority, and so he didn't really care one way or the other. And there was a widow, and the widow represents the person in need. It represents the person that is in a state of vulnerability a little bit, like the person that might not have the defense that they need. And the widow kept in that town who kept coming to him with a plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice. So the point that they made yesterday in the sermon was that pray with persistence and confidence continually. Continually pray with persistence and confidence to strive after what you want. And when I was listening to that, I was thinking about health and how oftentimes what we want is immediate results to our problem. We don't really know for sure if what we are doing is carrying us through on the path. It's hard to know sometimes if what you're doing in wellness is the right thing to do. How do you know if you're doing the right thing? Well, there's 2 ways to me that you can kind of know. There's 3 ways. Just kind of off the top of my head there. There's 3 ways that I think you can know if you're in the right realm of wellness, okay? Number 1 is, do you have a lot of symptoms? Is there a lot of feedback that your body is giving you to tell you that, hey, you've got yourself in an environment that's incongruent with health? That might be one way that can kind of guide you. Look, if you got a bunch of symptoms If you're taking medication for anything, then something inside your body is not functioning properly. If your blood pressure is high, or in this case that I was talking about earlier, if your blood pressure is low, if you can't sleep, if you've got acid reflux, or if you've got digestive issues, or you've got eczema, you've got some sort of autoimmune something or another, whatever your thing might be, that's one way to know that maybe you're kind of on the wrong track. You need to move yourself. You're either, if one of my very first patients today, she's a triathlete, and I asked her, I said, "What do you got planned for the week?" And she said a couple things, and then she's like, "And a lot of working out." And I said, I really wish I knew how much working out you needed. I wish it was a nutrient, like how much vitamin C do you need, or how much vitamin D do you need, right? Or how many milligrams of fish oil do you need? We can measure those things. We can say, hey, 5,000 IUs of vitamin D is a good baseline for a person, an adult. 3,000 milligrams of fish oil is a good baseline for an adult. But how many days of exercise does a person need? Do you need to work out twice a week? Do you need to work out 3 times a week? Do you need to work out 5 or 6 times a week? How many milligrams of, if exercise was measured in milligrams, how many milligrams would you need to take? And I don't think there's an answer for that. I don't know any research. It's, if you're trying to answer a specific question, maybe, but if you're depending on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to be the best NFL football team, maybe you need to exercise and work out year-round, all the time, always. If you're trying to be the best hitter in Major League Baseball, maybe you need to do that. Or if you're trying to be Kobe Bryant and be the best basketball player in the league during your time, or Michael Jordan, or whatever, maybe it's a year-round thing, right? But none of those things are health and wellness and longevity, so it's hard to know exactly what to do. So maybe you can use part of knowing if you're on the right track as, okay, I'm pretty much symptom-free. I feel good. I function good. I don't have any skin problems. I don't have any digestive problems. I'm doing that. That's one way to know if you're kind of doing the right thing when it comes to, if you've got symptoms. That's one way. The second way is to know if you don't have any symptoms, then okay, maybe you're kind of headed in the right direction. And then the third way is by the study of science. And I know that's a tricky one because science changes, and I don't mean science like clinically controlled double-blind trial and all that stuff. I'm talking about the science of God, and the science of the universe, and the science of nature, and the science of the order of things. That's what I'm talking about. How do things work, right? And you could take something like I know the guys get tired of me talking about fish oil, but you could take something like fish oil, and you could look back, and there's literally several thousand years. I don't know how long people have been on the earth. There's a lot of different debates over that, right? There's all kinds of people that'll tell you different stories about exactly how long people have been on the earth. And so I don't want to get into that. I could just tell you that it's been a long time, one way or the other. And you can look at it and say, what is one of the common things that's been pretty much consistent over let's just take the last 5,000 years. Let's take the last 5,000 years and say, could we make an argument that exercise is important based on the last 5,000 years? Yes. Can we make an argument that getting enough sunshine is important based on the last 5,000 years? I think you could. Can you make an argument that taking enough fish oil is important over 5,000 years? I think you could, right? So those are 3 ways that I kind of know that I'm on track to kind of know if it's like pray with persistence and confidence in going in the direction to try to get you to health. What this widow kept doing is she kept going back to the judge, and kept going back to the judge, and kept going back to the judge to ask for some justice against her adversary. Well, let's take adversary as disease and sickness. If we had to take, if we use this scripture and we said that we are the widow and we are going to the judge to help us with our adversary, which is sickness and disease. Would we just try it for 3 days and then just give up on it? Would that be what we would do? Would we try it for a week? We said, you know what? I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try this for a week. I'm going to try vitamin D for a week and see if it helps me. I'm going to take fish oil for a week and see if it helps me. I'm going to go for a walk for a week and see if I think it makes any difference. See, I think what happens a lot of times is we just don't persist. We don't persist in the pursuit of wellness. We don't persist in it. And the reason we don't persist in it is complicated. But one of the reasons we don't persist in it is maybe because we don't believe it's even a thing. So we got a break coming up. We'll come back right after this break. We'll finish this thought. We'll get on to some of those other things. But this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio. We'll be right back. We get into some pretty good discussions in our workout classes, especially the 6 a.m. workout class. We get into some pretty good discussions about whether we believe, what makes a person choose to do wellness things, right? And if we were to say, I'm going to keep with persistence, and that's Abraham Lincoln has one of my favorite quotes of all times. And I read it when I was coaching football. I read it in the Forney, Texas field house, waiting on the coach in the Forney, Texas field house. And he had it set either it was right behind his desk or it was on his desk. And it was a quote by Abraham Lincoln. And it said, I do the best that I can. And in the end, if it turns out that I'm right, what's said against me won't really matter much. But if it turns out that I'm wrong, 100 angels swearing I was right won't make a difference. And I read that quote when I was I was probably, I don't know, 27, 28 years old, something like that, when I was recruiting over there. And Forney's east of Dallas, for you guys that doesn't know anything about Forney. And I was over there and I saw that on that desk and I wrote it down in my notebook. And because I thought, you know what? That's the truth. I do the best I can. And then in the end, it's like, I'm going to try to do the best I can. And I hope that what I'm doing is right. And I hope that I get some feedback along the way to keep me going into knowing that's right. So is taking fish oil or vitamin D or exercise or not eating sugar or getting adjusted or doing my brain exercises, are those things that are right or wrong? And I don't know the answer to that question. I think they're right, obviously, because I'm doing some of them. I'm doing all those things, but do I know for sure that in the end it's going to make any difference? And I don't think there's any way to know that. But I just try to make sure that as I'm going along the way that I'm getting feedback. Hang on, let me get us back on the radio. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We are breaking down Luke 18 on taking health to church, the first 8 verses right there. And we're just talking about being persistent and being persistent in health. And how many of us are persistent in health? And how many of us want a quick fix and we just want it to just be done real quickly? And it says, finally, this judge gave in to this widow and said, okay, fine. I don't fear God and I don't care what anybody says about me, but I want you to get to I'll give you what you wanted because you've been so persistent. And then it was kind of funny that it's like, so you won't eventually come and attack me. That was an interesting thing that Jesus said right there. But he said, listen to what the judge says, and will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? It may take our entire lifetime before we find the answer on what we're doing with health. It may take me another, I'm hoping to live to 113 is my goal. So I got 60 more years to live. That's what I'm trying to reach is 113. So it may take me 60 more years to figure out whether or not these things that I think I'm doing right until I find out. But this last one, it says, however, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? Will he find any of us when he comes for judgment on health? Will there be anybody here that qualifies to win the race? Will there be anybody here that has dedicated their life to make sure? And I think there's some people out there, right? I think there are some people that try, and I think some of us that listen to the show try. I think some of us try harder than others do. I think some of us have learned that process of it. But I was just wondering, I was like, when you get to the end and you have cancer, will you look back 30 years ago and say, I really wish I would have quit eating all that crap that I was eating? I wonder if there's any relationship, because I had this conversation with a poor lady that's she's lost a brother. Her husband had surgery. Her daughter's got a problem. Like, I haven't seen her in 8 or 9 weeks, and she's just worn herself out. And I had this conversation that, it doesn't matter until it really matters. And then when it really matters, you'll do anything to get your health back. And I just want to encourage us by using this passage and saying, hey, look, if you think about how long Moses and them were in the desert, it's 40 years. Like, how many of us pray for 40 years on something? How many of us, because the pastor said this, and I thought it was pretty fitting yesterday. He said, how many of us, we said, I'll pray for you. And it took me back. I remember, and I've never told anybody this. When I was a freshman in college, one of my teammates' sister was sick. And I decided that I would start praying for her. And I didn't tell anybody that I was praying for her. And I prayed for her every single day, or every night that I said my prayers or whatever, for almost that whole year that I was in school. I prayed for her. And then I don't know why I stopped praying for her, but she popped into my head when yesterday during the sermon, when that preacher said something. He said, how many of us say, hey, I'll pray for you, and you pray for them for a day or a week? And how many of us just say that, and we really don't mean that, we just say that? Or, because I know there's some praying people out there, especially some of you ladies that I know. You guys have been praying for stuff and praying for me and praying for everybody else every single day, all day for 40 years or whatever. You guys qualify to win the race, okay? But a lot of us will say that same thing, and I think we do that in health. I'm going to start an exercise program. I'm going to do it for 8 weeks, and then at the end of that 8 weeks, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's like, I don't think that's the way health works. I think health is persistent and with confidence. Just know that what you're doing when you come work out, you have confidence in that it's helping you. When you're making those good choices to stay away from those refined carbohydrates, and you get rid of that sugar and all, just have confidence that it's helping you. And be persistent with your pursuit of health. That's what I got yesterday. That's what I got, that at the end, it's going to pay off for you. You're going to get justice for doing that. That's what I think. And I know there's someone will say, well, I did all that and I still got cancer. Well, that's the tricky part, because we don't know all the definitions of health. That's like the banker that came to me that had the cancer, and I didn't know what to tell him, but he ran 5 miles 3 times a week for 40 years and didn't have any body fat on him, and he thought that that's what he was supposed to do, right? So anyway, that's the story. That's the sermon. Pray with confidence. Pray with persistence. Strive for health with confidence and persistence, and don't give up, and keep going. And eventually, I think it'll pay off for you in the long run. So that's taking health to church. And let's get on. Let's get to the next thing, because I didn't want to take that too long. something real quickly. The bending mechanism, and I'm gonna show this on the Facebook, but I want you guys. I want you guys to that are on the radio, and just I'll try to walk you through and listen to it. But I want you to look, and if I can, um, if maybe this shows up, and it's going to be kind of small on your TV or on your phone or whatever. If you're watching me, um, and but I want you to see the mechanism of where your hip joint is and where your lumbar spine is, because people still don't get this. And I tried to talk to about it just a little bit last week. Um, this is a very small picture. I don't know if it would blow up or anything, but maybe I can make it a little bit. I just have a picture of a skeleton, and see if I can zoom in. I have a picture of a skeleton, and maybe you could see it. Maybe that's a little bit better. There you go. But you've got an ankle joint, you got a knee joint, you have a hip joint, and the hip joint is down here. If you put your hand on the side of your leg, just like right where your glutes are, but just put your hand on the side. Your hip joint is way down there. And then above the hip joint in the middle is the lumbar spine. And the lumbar spine is up here above the pelvis, right? But when we bend forward, we want to bend, we want our hinge points to be at the ankle, the knee, and the hip joint. We don't want our lumbar spine to bend forward. I know I went over this last week or a week or two, and I just think I don't think we get it. I don't think we get it what it means about how we should bend. There we go. So look at this. See if this picture, change that. See if this picture is any better. I know that, yeah, there we go. So the hinge joint, the ankle, the knee, and the hip, and then the lumbar spine. Well, this first one, we're putting too much extension into the lumbar spine when we bend forward. She's doing a great job of bending at the hip joint, but she's not doing a very good job of keeping her back straight, her lumbar spine straight. Her lumbar spine's got to stay locked in and straight whenever we bend. This person in the middle is doing it closer to normal. That's in a neutral spine position. So when we bend forward, we want to hinge at our ankle, our knee, and our hip joint, and not our lumbar spine. This last one is this rounded shoulder, rounded back flexion of the lumbar spine. And flexion of the lumbar spine pushes on the disc and pushes it backwards. I learned that there's debate in chiropractic school, but that's what Stu McGill says, and he's the number one guy that I know of about low back function. And so I'm going with Stu McGill. He's like, look, don't do that. Don't bend your spine forward. Now, if I'm sitting here on this little stool and I just slouch my lumbar spine, I just let if I had my thumb in my belly button and a thumb on my sternum, and I was straight, and those two things collapsed down, if my sternum or my shoulders moved towards my belly button, I would be in flexion. And if I was in flexion, I would be pushing on that disc and pushing it backward. And that's going to cause problems. If you're doing potting of plants, if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot this weekend and you get a bunch of plants and you decide I'm going to pot those, I'm going to put some flowers in those plants, and I'm going to get some mulch, and I'm going to get some dirt, and I'm going to do some gardening and all that stuff, and you're bending your lumbar spine forward, you are going to push that disc backward and end up with with low back pain, disc problems, because of the biomechanics of that. We should not bend our lumbar spine. We should hinge at our hip and our knee and our ankle. We should have flexibility in our ankles. We should have flexibility in our knee joints, and we should have flexibility in our hip joints in order to make sure that we don't hurt our low back. So just wanted to share that with you. You can if you're listening to the radio, you can catch me. You can come back and watch that live and see that live, and then you can or go back to the Facebook page, and you can get it on Walk by Faith Facebook page, or go to the Rock Health and Wellness Center's Facebook page and watch it and see what I'm talking about. But we'll go home and we'll sit down in our recliner and we'll just get ourselves into flexion, and then we'll sit there all weekend. We'll just sit there, binge out watching Netflix with ourselves in flexion, and we'll be pushing on that disc and end up on Monday with a sore back. That's not what we need to do. We need to keep our lumbar spine locked in place, and then so that we're not bending into flexion. Okay, that's just something that I wanted to talk about tonight. Next thing I wanted to get to is I just want to finish up. I may not finish up because we may carry this into for a long time, but I want to talk for a second about in this Grain Brain book by Dr. David Perlmutter, and you guys can go back if you need to know who Dr. Perlmutter is. He's a board certified neurologist. He's a medical doctor, and I just want to read what a medical doctor says about statins. I just want you guys to hear it. A statin drug is what your doctor gives you whenever your cholesterol is high. And so I just want to read a little paragraph or two right here that Dr. Perlmutter is talking about. So it says the statin epidemic and the link to brain dysfunction. Now, he's a neurologist, and he's also a fellow in the American Academy of Nutrition, which I think is an interesting combination. Why would a neurologist who knows everything there is to know about the brain go and get become a fellow in nutrition? Why would he become board certified in nutrition? Why would a neurologist think that nutrition is so important? Because your nutrition drives your brain. If you want to have a healthy brain, you have to have a healthy gut. And if you want to have a healthy gut, you have to understand nutrition. That's why. So here's from the book. Our understanding of how cholesterol is critical for brain health has brought me and many others in my field to believe that statins, the blockbuster drugs prescribed to millions of Americans to lower cholesterol, may cause or exacerbate brain disorders and disease. Memory dysfunction is known as a side effect of statins. Dr. Dwayne Graveline, a former doctor to NASA astronauts who earned the nickname Space Doc, has been a strong opponent of statins ever since he experienced total memory loss, and that he believed was caused by the statins he was taking at the time. He has been collecting evidence for their side effects and from people around the world. Today, he has written 3 books on the matter, the most famous of which is Lipitor, Thief of Memory. So this is Lipitor, Thief of Memory. You can go look it up. It's by Dr. Dwayne, D-U-A-N-E, Graveline, G-R-A-V-E-L-I-N-E. In February 2012, the FDA released a statement indicating that statin drugs could cause cognitive side effects such as memory lapses and confusion. One recent study performed by the American Medical Association and published in the Archives of Internal Medicine in January 2012 demonstrated an astounding 48% increased risk of diabetes among women taking statin medication. I don't know how it goes. I know my dad was on statin drugs. I don't know if my mom was on statin drugs. I've got a bucket full of patients that are on statin drugs. I don't know how it goes. I don't know if your medical doctor, when he tells you that he's going to put you on a statin because your cholesterol is high, if he tells you that there's a 48% increase risk of diabetes among women taking statins. I don't, do you guys text me back, leave me a message. Is that commonplace? Like, if you're listening to the show, send me a message. Is it common for your medical doctor to tell you that you have a 48% chance of increasing your diabetes if you take this statin? I wonder why those two things correlate. I wonder why taking the statin and diabetes correlates. I wonder what this cholesterol is high for in the first place. We went back and we did that whole cholesterol breakdown, right? That cholesterol is a patch that patches up holes in your arteries, in your blood vessels. And where do the holes come from? They come from damage to the blood vessel in certain ways, but there's a tie-in. There's a huge tie-in to the amount of blood sugar you have. And so, what are we going to give you? I bet you a lot of you who are taking statins are also on metformin because you got of your diabetes and your statin, and you're probably going to take Lipitor. That is the statin, right? You're probably going to take lisinopril. That's what I meant, for blood pressure at the same time. And so now we've got the common things that we see all the time, right? The study involved big numbers, more than 160,000 postmenopausal women, making it hard to ignore significance and gravity. Recognizing that type 2 diabetes is a powerful risk factor for Alzheimer's disease, a relationship between statin drugs and cognitive decline or cognitive dysfunction is certainly understandable. In 2009, Stephanie Seneff, a senior research scientist at the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory at MIT, who recently became interested in the effects of drugs and diet on health and nutrition, wrote a compelling essay explaining why low-fat diets and statin may cause Alzheimer's. In it, she chronicles our knowledge of statin side effects and paints a stunning portrait of how the brain suffers in their presence. She also synthesizes the latest science and inputs other experts in the field. From other experts in the field. As Dr. Seneff explains, one of the main reasons statins promote brain disorders is they handicap the liver's ability to make cholesterol. So the statin handicaps the liver's ability to make cholesterol, and the metformin handicaps the liver's ability to release glucose into the bloodstream. So we're just going to just attack this liver with the pharmaceuticals. And I didn't say it. I'm just saying that the book says it. Consequently, the level of LDL in the blood drops significantly. Yeah, they know the answer to the test, so they just make the drug to fit the answer to the test. We got to get your LDLs down. Yeah. As I've just detailed, cholesterol plays a vital role in the brain, enabling communication between neurons and encouraging the growth of new brain cells. In an ironic twist, the statin industry advertises its products by saying that they interfere with cholesterol production in the brain as well as in the liver. Professor of biophysics at Iowa State University, Dr. Shin, is a noted authority on how cholesterol functions within neural networks to transmit messages. He put it bluntly in an interview for the Science Daily Reporter. If you deprive cholesterol from the brain, then you directly affect the machinery that triggers the release of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters affect the data processing and memory functions. In other words, how smart you are and how well you remember things. If you try to lower the cholesterol by taking medications that is attacking the machinery of cholesterol synthesis in the liver, that medicine goes to the brain too, and then reduces the synthesis of cholesterol, which is necessary in the brain. Our study shows there's a direct link between cholesterol and the neurotransmitter release, and we know exactly the molecular mechanism of what happens in the cells. Cholesterol changes in the shape of the proteins to stimulate thinking and memory. And he just goes on. He just goes on for this whole thing, and breaks down. Besides statins' direct impact on cholesterol, they have an indirect effect on the supply of fatty acids and antioxidants. They not only reduce the amount of cholesterol contained in LDL particles, but also diminish the actual number of LDL particles. So in addition to depleting cholesterol, they limit the stash available to the brain of both fatty acids and antioxidants, which are also carried in the LDL particles. Proper brain function depends on all three of these substances. So I just thought I would share that with you. We didn't get to that. Um, the next paragraph is how it paralyzes the cell's ability to make coenzyme Q10, and we know that. And then it also, finally, the statins could have an indirect effect on vitamin D. The body makes vitamin D from cholesterol in the skin upon exposure to UV rays from the sun. So there's maybe some information there. So I just wanted to share that with you. You guys can, if you're taking statins, you should really talk to your medical doctor about that. You can't talk to your chiropractor in the state of Texas because it's not within my scope of practice to take you on or put you off of medications. That is 100% up to your medical doctor or your DO to do that. We can't do that because heaven forbid that we did something like that and then like decrease the side effects of your medication. But we can't do it. But we can talk about health. And we can talk about the subluxation, and that's what we do. And if cholesterol medicine decreases the brain function and the brain doesn't function properly, then your body's not going to function properly either. And if your frontal lobe shuts down, then your flexor muscles are going to get increased in muscle tone, and now you're going to get decreased ranges of motion and abnormal biomechanical load on your spine, which is now going to end up giving you some sort of back pain or neuropathy that you might be suffering from, right? That's how it all works. That's why the physical, chemical, and mental emotional aspect of the subluxation is super important. I'm going to keep the carpal tunnel one, the article about carpal tunnel, because it's kind of extensive, and maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow night, because a lot of people are not for sure what carpal tunnel is about, exactly what causes it. A lot of people think, well, I must have carpal tunnel, and then once they get it, they think it's a lifetime diagnosis, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we can talk about that tomorrow. About that. Let me check some of these texts and see if anybody was texting me. Yeah, this is just one about specific questions, and I'll get to you. I will answer this as soon as this show is over. I'll get back with you on both of those right there. So those are specific questions that someone I don't want to. I don't know exactly what those specific questions are, but as soon as the show's over, I'll text you back and see if I can answer any of those questions for you if you're still watching tonight. So give me just a few minutes. We just got about 50 seconds left. Hey, if you guys have any questions, if you have anything you'd like to talk about, if you have a subject that you'd like to talk about, just send it to me. I'd be glad to do the research. I love doing the research anyway. And so just send it to us. We'll get it covered on the show, and then try to get you the information that we can get you. So I hope tonight was informative. I hope you guys learned something from that or got something from that. And don't be afraid to share that information back with me. Just like the guy tells me his low blood pressure, solved his pain down his leg. I'm like, hey, fantastic. That's good. And I hope that solves his problem from now on. So I should have been better at that, and I appreciate his feedback, and that helps me be a better doctor. So, you guys have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow night at 6.